Amish, out of sight, out of mind, right? But have you ever stopped to think about the important traditional ideas the Amish carry to our era? One of their more famous traditions is that of rumspringa, a running around period in a person's life. First, we will give the background of the Amish people and the history of rumspringa. Second, we will discuss the views of the Amish youth during rumspringa. And finally, we will discuss the media's take on rumspringa. Who are the Amish? The Amish religion dates back to the 18th century, when groups of Amish people left Switzerland to avoid religious persecution. One of these groups began a sub-movement that followed the leader of the Swiss Anabaptist Church, Jacob Amen, who advocated for communion twice a year and said that followers should wash each other's feet in reverence to Christ. Some of Amen's teachings were more radical for the other Anabaptist groups to understand, one of which was the shunning of the excommunicated. The Mennonites, who you may have heard of, are in fact the result of this religious separation. The staunch religious beliefs of the Amish are often hard for the English or non-Amish to understand. They retain classical Christian beliefs, and their holy books include Luther's German Bible, the Martyr's Mirror, the Ausbund, and the Dorschrecht Confession of Faith. Luther's German Bible is the translation of the traditional Latin Bible into German, so the common masses could experience God's Word. The Martyr's Mirror are the stories of their religious ancestors who faced persecution for their beliefs. The Ausbund and the Dorschrecht Confession of Faith are their hymn book and confessional, respectively. Their church is organized around 4 main heads, who are all men, the first of which is the bishop, who is in charge of preaching, teaching, performing baptisms, ordinations, marriages, and funerals. He is in charge of deciding whether or not a person will be shunned by the community. The second position is that of the minister. In each congregation, there are usually 2 ministers, and these people are in charge of preaching and teaching during the service. The third position is that of the full servant of the poor, or full deacon. The deacon is very rare in North America because his main job is withholding religious orthodoxy. And finally, we have the full servant of the poor, or just the deacon, who is in charge of reading from the Bible during services and administering funds to the poor. The congregation's lives are centered around Jesus Christ's teachings by loving and forgiving their enemies. The Amish's separation from our society is a statement saying that they do not endorse how we are using our resources because it is not following God's way. Amish beliefs are condensed into the law of their communities, the Ordnung. In German, Ordnung means order, and these are the verbal rules set forth for each community. The Old Order Amish Ordnung prohibits the owning of a car, TV, radio, personal computer, and phone. You are not allowed to use public electric lines, and you may not achieve higher education, take military action, or initiate divorce. Men and women are expected to dress in unadorned clothing. Men grow beards after marriages, but not mustaches, due to the militaristic implications. Women wear long, plain dresses with head coverings and aprons, with unadorned patterns. Men and women, after they are baptized into the church, realize they will follow the laws of the Ordnung explicitly or face possible excommunication. A rumspringa is a time period when the young person the age of 16 or older makes an informed decision on whether they will join the church and follow explicitly the Ordnung or join the English. This encourages informed decision-making by allowing teens to experience things that are normally forbidden to them. If they do not join the church, they will not be shunned. Shunning only takes place if a person joins the church and breaks their vows. The rumspringa is used so that they may not join the church and wish they had chose the other way. Some congregations of the Old Order Amish do not practice rumspringa. but those that do often determine the activities that are acceptable to the community. Teens undergoing rumspringa are free to experiment with their lives. There are virtually no curfews, and parents turn a blind eye toward behavior. They may now experiment with all kinds of technology normally forbidden to them. Cell phones and personal computers are now accessible, leading to a lot of social networking and texting. Instead of the usual horse-drawn buggies, teens may now buy a car to drive to meet up with other Amish kids from greater distances away. This may lead to some of the more liberal rumspringa participants to throw wild parties. Amish and English teens alike will gather together to enjoy things that are normally forbidden, such as alcohol, drugs, and sex. Some of the more conservative rumspringa participants enjoy going to hymn sings, which usually include several hours of singing hymns, conversation, and dinner. Some of the more traditional activities included in rumspringa are volleyball, swimming, picnicking, and hiking. There are usually several different groups within a community that have different tastes as to what their rumspringa will be like.
Next, we will take a look at a teen's perspective of this vast journey. During the time spent preparing, partaking, and reflecting upon rumspringa, these teens have different viewpoints on the subject. As with any tradition, there are people who question its existence. This is the case of rumspringa by select participants. Some teens believe that it is a frivolous waste of time. They have already planned out their life, either with the Amish or the English ways. Yet others yearn for this time to define who they are. As with other people, they believe that any improper actions they commit during this freedom will be judged. They believe that these improper actions will be judged by God, and they will not be accepted into his kingdom. These actions include drinking, promiscuous activity, and other ill behaviors. They believe that the devil will look upon them and be judged accordingly. Yet, there is another reason for their improper actions being limited. That reason is their own conscience. They believe that each and every action they do during this time will have an everlasting effect on their life. They also believe that their parents will look down upon them for their negative decisions. As with nearly any activity, there are behavioral differences among males versus females. Typically, males have an easier time shedding their Amish ways over their female counterparts. This is seen in the way they present themselves in public. Males have an easier time shedding their Amish clothing for a taste of the English style. Although some females do don the English look, most feel more comfortable with their traditional attire and their hair tied up. When it comes to partying, both genders can be equally seen at wild get-togethers. Although males are more likely to be seen doing drugs, both genders participate equally in drinking and sexual activity. For some females, they drink because they think it will impress males, which may lead to sexual activity. If pregnancy does occur during this time, they must be married. Although there are no limits on teens doing in rumspringa, there are many actions that are deemed extreme by the church. These include excessive partying, drinking, use of drugs, and promiscuous behavior. This leads to some people having conservative beliefs and not doing this way. They typically will follow the church's and elders' viewpoints on the subject. And parents are also prohibited from doing harm to their kids because of these behaviors. They merely look the other way upon these actions. Unfortunately, some teens think that this period makes them exempt from the laws of the state. Frequently, underage drinking, along with smoking, is seen. also choose to participate in the use of illegal drugs such as methamphetamine, marijuana, and cocaine. They believe since this is their time of learning and exploring, they are exempt from the laws of the state, not just the rules of the church. After a teen decides the rumspringa is up, they must make a life-changing decision. For some, this means joining the church and staying with the Amish. Typically, 80 to 90% of these teens will choose to join the church. They will now be baptized as adults and officially part of the church. Those that do will typically follow in the footsteps of their mother and father. Yet, there are others who decide that the English way of life is for them. Approximately 10 to 20% of these youth decide to leave the Amish way. They will not be shunned for this decision, as they were not yet part of the church. If they do decide to leave the church after they are baptized, they will be shunned and will no longer have any communication. After a teen's rumspringa is up, everybody will inevitably reflect on their times. They believe that each and every action they had will affect their future lives. It is inevitable that at some point in their lives they will think, what if I chose the other way? Where would I be right now?
The Amish and the media are two presences that do not usually mix. But during an Amish rumspringa, the teens are all about using Facebook, Twitter, and other social media websites, while the media, on the other hand, will do anything it can to capture this time in an Amish young person's life. Today, I will look at how the media portrays the Amish, the side we see of rumspringa, and the side we do not see of rumspringa. When I say the word Amish, what do you think of? Probably the long beards, no electricity, and plain clothing. Well, that's what the media has shown you, so that's immediately what you think of. But these stereotypes that you know of are mostly wrong. How the Amish dress. The Amish dress very plain, but they actually do have color in their fashion. Some will dress with black, green, blue, brown, and even lavender in both genders' clothing. But patterns in the fabric are taboo. However, when out in public, Amish men will wear black vests, and in the winter months, black suit coats, and will wear a wide-brimmed hat as well. Women, on the other hand, will wear a bonnet, an apron, and a cape in the winter months. Being shunned, long beards, and religion are also a very big part of Amish stereotypes, way of life that have been stereotyped. Being shunned, or maidang, is a lot more serious than the media portrays it to be. When someone is shunned, the community is not allowed to buy or trade things from the excommunicated, or even talk to them. The long beards are also a way to tell if the man has been married or not, and also you will notice that no Amish men have mustaches. And religion in the Amish life is also a very big part, as most of you could tell. The demeanor of the Amish is actually portrayed quite the same as it normally is. The Amish present themselves as quiet, plain people who keep to themselves and do their own thing. The side we see of rumspringa is mostly what you would expect it to be. The teens are all about having all sorts of electricity, throwing parties, and all other sorts of things. The parties the Amish throw are not what you quite expect them to be. The Amish throw huge parties that can take up entire farmsteads. And at the end of the nights, the teens will end up sleeping wherever they can find a spot.
Amish kids got the best parties. They got the wild parties.